Hey guys, it's Miss Bauer. I am so excited to start our first unit of creative nonfiction. This is one of my favorite things. I'm a little bit newer to it than I am some of the other genres, but I really dove into and did a lot of research on this. So I'm really excited to see what you guys will come up with for your pieces of writing. This first lesson is called What is Truth? There has been some sort of a debate about what the word creative means when it comes before the word nonfiction. So I want you to kind of play around with that as we dive into this unit. And with a lot of things in creative writing, there isn't necessarily always a right or a wrong. It's more or less how you are going to really attack it. So here's one of my favorite quotes about one of the views. This may not be exactly what happened, but this is how it felt, and that's by Lex Bulford. So this whole unit will probably challenge you to really think about what reality is and perspectives and things like that. So let's dive in. The objectives for this lesson are students will learn what creative nonfiction is, and students will understand the writing options. I'm actually going to skip ahead to talk about your writing options first to give you the big picture here because I think that will make a little more sense. Okay, so options are going to be pretty wide here. Choice one, it says you may write an essay, you may start if you're someone who really likes nonfiction writing and you intend to write a full-length book, if you want to start with a couple chapters with the intent to maybe finish it at a later date, that would also be okay. A poetry set, those are just to name a few. So depending on how you see yourself as a creative writer, if there's a medium that you choose to really that you feel that you are the best at and you would like to use that form of writing, that's okay. Just maybe shoot me an email and let me know what your plan is. And if you're not sure and you're totally new to this, then I will give you some valuable information in the days to come. Choice two is, okay, I understand that not everyone may want to write about a personal experience. Excuse me, like a memoir, something that came from your actual life. So if you're a person that would rather not discuss yourself, you can rest assured that you may discuss something that happened to someone else. So it doesn't have to be you. It could be something that happened in Miss Wahusky's history class, and you retell that information. Just be wary that anytime you use anyone in writing, you must get their permission first. So just make sure that you are getting permission from those people and that they preview your writing before you publish it because you want them to feel good about what is being written about them. The other idea, so we're looking at real events, real people. History also includes real events and people. So you'll notice under choice number two, it says rewriting factual events from history. This would include research. So you'd have to maybe pick something that was really compelling that you learned about in history or that you know about and kind of go from there. So I'll let you kind of grapple with those as we go through this lesson. We'll have more lessons later on how to write in this way, so don't get too bogged down with that yet, just to start thinking about it and to put the rest of this lesson in perspective. Choice three will also play a big part in the way that you write, and that is your point of view. POV is point of view, but we'll get into more of that later. So I'm going to go back beginning here and show you one definition of creative nonfiction. The word creative refers simply to the use of literary craft and presenting nonfiction. That is factual, accurate prose about real people, events in a compelling, vivid manner. Notice this definition is different than this quote right here. This may not be exactly what happened, but this is how I felt. So there is the big debate on how that came about. Okay, are we creative because we are embellishing the truth, or are we creative because of the way that we write the truth? I actually downloaded an ebook called You Can't Make This Stuff Up, and I wanted to show you a little bit of it here. I just take me a second to pull it up. This is a Kobo It's an app, I know, as well, but you can get it on your desktop. So I don't know if anyone has this, but it's pretty cool. So I can highlight and annotate my text. So here's the definition of the debate of the word creative. I'm just reading the highlighted parts here to show you. The problem was the word creative. On one hand, it was thought to be pretentious. Academics especially found this to be troubling. Their mantra was that you don't tell people you are being creative, they are supposed to recognize it and tell you. So when coining the term creative nonfiction, that was an issue. Journalists also opposed the term creative, although for different reasons. Creativity, they insisted, meant making things up, fabricating facts, something journalists are never supposed to do. Just ask William Randolph Hearst or Jason Blair. To avoid the word creative, some academics and reporters began calling the genre literary nonfiction or literary journalism, but neither label caught on. Literary sounds as pretentious as creative, and although most creative nonfiction contains journalistic element, depending of course on how you define journalism, the assumption that all creative nonfiction was also journalism was inaccurate, and nobody wants that. Let's go to what is it or isn't it? In some ways, creative nonfiction is like jazz. It's a rich mix of flavors, ideas, and techniques, some of which are newly invented and others as old as writing itself. Creative nonfiction can be an essay, a journal article, a research paper, a memoir, or a poem. It can be personal or not, or it can be all of these. So again, just recapping what I said before, and that's the idea with the choices that you have to make about what your writing will look like. The words creative and nonfiction describe the form. The word creative refers to the use of literary craft, the techniques fiction writers, playwrights, and poets employ to present nonfiction. Factually accurate prose about real people and events in a compelling, vivid, dramatic manner. So here we have that idea of it being real and accurate, and that creative isn't embellishing the writing at all, but rather that it comes with how you write the real events. And I think that's more of the true definition in like an English department standpoint. So we'll go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so here's a graphic to kind of sum up that first quote. Now, if I were to include what happened, even if it were factual, okay, and added in how it felt somehow, then I would have creative nonfiction. Okay, again, I have my factual truth. I'm adding in, here's another way to look at it, emotional and psychological truths. I have creative nonfiction. I may include things that are measurable, verifiable data. If I am writing about a battle that took place, I could easily find that verifiable data. I may be able to track down primary sources and things like that to prove it. However, if I use literary devices, and this is down below here, to explain this data that is measurable and verifiable, and I use my imagination to come up with metaphors, similes, and things like that using my intuition, that also equals creative nonfiction. Now, here is an issue that we come up with when pulling in events from people's lives. Okay, if I have a childhood memory that took place when I was 5 years old and I am now 27, I have to think back, am I going to remember every single specific detail? Well, maybe not. And here's where it gets kind of tricky, and people argue a little bit more about this. If you have your factual truths here, and you obviously have a real memory, okay, sometimes people think that it's okay to include invented memories between the real memory scenes, if you will, to fill in the gaps and to make a more cohesive storyline. So just something else to think about. So if you're having issues and you're running into problems with not remembering enough information, shoot me an email and we can work something out like that. A lot of people think that is also within the acceptable realm of creative nonfiction. Okay, so again, just recapping, literary techniques mean showing, not telling, using vivid pictures and images to demonstrate and create a sense of credibility through your word choice. You should never have to say, hey, that really happened, because you want it to be very obvious to your readers based on your word choice and your details that should be factual and believable. We'll get into more of that later when I show you lessons on the actual writing part. All right, so we went over your assignment. Again, you're to choose a form of how you want to write. Writing can be something from your life. It can be someone that you know. It could be something from history. And then to start thinking about point of view. You can write it from first person point of view or intimate third person point of view, but just some food for thought. No matter what you choose, the narrator doesn't necessarily have to be the author. And you can keep yourself out if you would like to remain a little more objective, or if you're picking the history option, obviously you would be within the right, you'd have that right to keep yourself out. However, if you do choose to keep yourself in, you can do so by reflecting on what you are learning. Now, there's another interesting thing, assuming that something has been learned. If you would like to give your piece a lot more depth, and again, I'll get into more of this later, but if you want to give your piece a lot more depth, then you're going to want to have some big aha moment or something that is learned at the end. So just a little bit of food for thought there. So your assignment is to begin thinking about those choices that I gave to you and get my big campus under control in terms of using it, making sure everything is set up the way that it should be, and then just kind of knowing where your resources are in case you do run into an issue. All right, recapping our objectives. Students will learn what creative nonfiction is. So if you feel like you have a really great understanding of what it is, that is excellent. If you feel like you're a little muddy on it yet, maybe review this lesson again or do some of your own research. Students will understand writing options. Again, if you feel like it's a little bit muddy, you can go back and reference the resources, the bundle, or review this lesson. So with that, we'll conclude lesson 1. And like I said before, I really look forward to seeing what you guys come up with.